Welcome back everyone, my name is Dustin, and we've been making some really good progress in the engine so far, and I think it's time we actually take a break from that and try to make a game. Where we're at in the engine, I've actually tested it out. We can actually create a small little Asteroids game with it. So we're going to take the next couple of videos and make this simple Asteroids game. While working on the game, we'll also add in any missing functionality that we're going to need to make this simple game, and fix any bugs that we find along the way. Alright, so let's get into it. So since we're going to be creating an Asteroid style game, let's go get some assets from the OpenGameArt. I have chosen these assets right here. I've already downloaded these. So I've taken out this asteroid from the asset pack. I've also done a couple other ones. So if we come here, I've taken this asteroid and I've made it into a one file because we only need the one like that. And the same with the ship. Where is it? The ship is right here. And the size of this is 96 by 80 pixels. If you don't have Aseprite, I recommend you get it. It's not too expensive and it's a really good pixel art software. I really enjoy using it. The first thing I want to be able to do is to be able to load an entity based on some component values that we're going to give them. And we don't want to really keep writing the same thing over and over, so it would be a good idea to start with a definition of source. So let's do that now. Okay, so let's start over here in our Solution Explorer. And we're just going to do everything in the editor. And we'll go to Assets, Assets, and Scripts. Instead of Scripts, we're actually going to make a new folder here and call it Asteroids. Okay, and inside of Asteroids, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this file entity defs. Entity defs.lua. Now, if you remember, all game code is going to be done in Lua. We're going to be doing no game code in C++. The engine is going to be game agnostic. So the first thing we're going to do is create a table. So everything in Lua is basically a table. And we're going to start with our asteroids. So we're going to say asteroid defs, or definitions, is equal to this table. And we're going to have our first asteroid, and we'll say small, or we'll do the big one first. Asteroid big is equal to. So what it's going to do is it's going to go into this definitions table and then find this particular item. And inside of this table, we're going to actually put it in a group. Each asteroid is going to have a group, and it's going to be part of the group of asteroids. And we're going to have some components. And then we're going to have the transform. Actually, let's do the components like this. And it's going to have a position. And we're just going to put these off the screen for now. And scale just 1 to 1. That should say Y. And rotation. Our rotation is going to start at 0. Another component is going to be the sprite component. And it's going to have its asset name. And that's going to be, we're just going to call it S1. Width of the sprite. And if we go here, this is the one I chose for the big asteroid. And we just check the size of it. It's 112 by 80. So width is 112. Height is equal to 80. And then we need our start X. That's going to be 0. Start Y. It's going to be 0. And we're going to start this at a layer of 2. Layer is equal to 2. Alright, and we'll start with those components for now, and we'll just copy this. And we'll change this here to small. And we're going to start them in the same place. All we're going to change here is this. I'm going to name this to AS2 or Asteroid 2. You can name it whatever you want, Asteroid big, Asteroid small. And we need the dimensions. Go here, go to the other asteroid. And it's just 32 by 32. Perfect. Okay. So 32 by 32. All right. So there's our asteroid depths. For now, we'll add more in later. Well, what else are we going to need? We're going to have a ship. So we're going to have our ship depths. And that's basically the same table. Blue, ship. Okay. And we're going to need some components. So since we already did that, let's just copy these. And this one. Cool. And we'll give this guy a tag. We called it name. I'm thinking about going inside and changing it to tag. So ship will be the tag. Don't forget to put the commas when anytime you're adding something new. That's pretty good for now. We'll leave that as is. We will have to add in more components later, but the first part is let's get this working. But this isn't the size of it, and this is just ship. We should call it blue ship, but we're just going to call it ship for now. And if we go back here, it is 96 by 80. Okay, cool. 96 by 80. And start 00, layer 2. Cool. So we just created a new file here, and usually we just go off of the main. And that's the only file we're reading right now. So we need a way to actually read this file into Lua. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to get rid of all this stuff in main. Let's clean up main and basically start from scratch here. So let's get rid of all this stuff. Cool. And in our update, get rid of all your stuff in your update. All this stuff we don't need right now. Awesome. So you should end up, that should be your main Lua right now. Okay. So this is the only one that our engine is currently reading. So we need to add some functionality in that will allow us to read other scripts into our Lua state. Okay, so let's go into our script system. So if we come here, go into our scripting, let's go to actually systems, our script system, and let's add in another function here. So we're probably going to have multiple free functions that we're going to want to register with Lua. Let's just add in this here, another static function, and it'll be static void register Lua functions. That's what we'll call it. And this will just take in a sole state reference of Lua. Cool. Make this. Awesome. So the first function that we're going to add in today will actually be a run script function. It's pretty straightforward. So what we're going to do here is go lua.setFunction. Okay. And here we're going to want to say run script. So this is something that's going to run the script for us. And what this is going to do, it's going to take in the path. So it's going to take it, first it's going to be a lambda function taking in a reference, or capturing a reference, taking in a const std string reference for the path of the file that we want to read, or the script that we want to read. And we're going to do this, we're going to go try. And we're going to try to do a lua.safe script file and send in the path. And if that fails, we will catch the const sol error reference error. Okay, and we'll put our Scion error loading Lua script, and that'll take it for our error. So it's error.what. What the Lua issue, the code issue for the Lua was when trying to load that script. And then if that does, return false. And if it makes it out here, we'll just return true. Cool, that should allow us to run the script. We still need to add this in, so we have to go to our application, because it doesn't know that we want to use that function yet. Right here. So we'll just basically just copy this, change this to register Lua functions, get rid of the registry because we don't need it right now. If we have to add that in later, we will. But I'll try to put the other ones in. The ones that need the registry, I'll put in here. The ones that don't, we'll just. But we do need the Lua state because we need to register these functions with the Lua state. So now we should be able to actually call that function in Lua. All right, so now that we're able to actually read new files, let's actually just test that to see if that'll work for us. So that's called entity.defs.lua, and where is the path? That is in our scripts, asteroids, entity defs. So main. So up here, we're just going to want to say run script. Actually, we can do this is a returns a bool, so we can go if run script assets scripts. And where is it again? Assets, scripts, asteroids, entity defs.lua. Asset, oh no. Asteroids. Entity defs.lua. Then we'll just print. We did it. Cool. End. Now it shouldn't do anything in the script right now. And we shouldn't be rendering anything either. There we go. It built it and we did it. So it ran the script successfully with no errors. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Now that we're able to actually run the script and read it into Lua, we're going to need to create some helper functions to help us load this entity or load these entities in. So we'll do that right now. So in the same folder, in our asteroids folder, so in here we'll go new. Now we're just going to call this utilities.lua. Utilities.lua. All right. And we're just going to create some helper functions here. So let's just put in a little marker. And these are just helper functions. And the first one's going to be load entity. Load entity. And it's going to load it based on the definition that we send in. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is just assert to make sure the def exists. We don't want to be sending in nil because then it will crash. So we're just asserting here. And I believe we can put a message here. Def does not exist. Something like that. I believe that'll post the message for us. If not, we'll see. First thing we'll do is check to see if it has a tag. So local tag or name is equal to just a blank empty string for now. And then we'll just say if def.tag, then tag is equal to def.tag. So what this is checking to see is if it's not nil, go in and set the tag. And then we'll do the same for group. So local group is equal to just a blank string, and then we'll say if def.group, then group is equal to def.group. All right. And then we're going to say local new entity is equal to entity tag group. Now the first one we're going to want to get is the transform component. All entities should have a transform component, but we'll put the check in just in case. So if def.components.transform, then new entity, add component, and it will be transform vec2 def.components.transform position.x and .y. That's for our first vec2, and the next one is scale. We can just copy this, change the transform to change the position to scale. Cool. And then put in our rotation. Def.components.transform.rotation. Cool. That should add that in for us, and we have to add the end in here because we did an if. And now we're going to want to check to see if it has a sprite component. So we go if def.components.sprite, then local sprite. We're saying local sprite because we want to get the sprite back. The reason why we want to get it back is because after the sprite has been added, we're going to want to generate the UVs. We still haven't put that inside the engine yet to do on it automatically. So we'll go new entity, add component, and that's going to be a sprite component, and it's going to be def dot components dot sprite dot asset name, and then def dot components dot sprite width, the height, start X, start Y, and the layer. Okay. I believe that's how we do a sprite. So let's go back and make sure. So if we come here back to our core, ECS components, and check out our sprite.cpp. So we're sending in, yep, so name, width, height, X, Y, layer. That's exactly how we're doing it. So let's go back to our utilities. Go back into our utilities and layer. Cool. So once we have our sprite, we're now going to want to go sprite generate UVs. Cool. Okay, good. And so we can put the end. What we're going to want to do here is actually return the ID of the newly created entity. So we'll go return new entity ID. Okay. Let's just make sure that that's what we send it as. So again, back to your ECS that we created. What do we do for our wrapper for the ID? And yeah, it's just the ID. So that's returning the entity ID. Okay. Awesome. Now we're able to actually load an entity. Well, we have to test this first. There's another problem, is our assets. So what we're doing is we're sending in the asset name. So where's our entity def? Right here. We're sending in these names, but how does it know that these exist inside of our asset manager? Well, it doesn't unless we go in and hard code it. Let's go to our application here. I believe I have some hard coded values here somewhere for an asset. Right here. So in our asset manager, we're adding in our textures here. Well, we don't want this. We don't want to do this in the application. We don't want anything hard coded here. We want, so let's just take this out right now. There are no more assets in there. We do put our asset manager into the registry. So I asked in a previous video as a challenge for you guys to try to bind some of the asset manager functionality so we can access it in Lua. If you tried the challenge, let me know in the comments below. If not, maybe pause the video here and try to do that now. All we really need to be able to do right now is to add a texture into the asset manager. We don't need to really worry about anything else. So give it a go, see if you can do the bindings for the asset manager. We are going to need to grab it from the registry. All right, pause it here and give it a go. Okay, so if you gave that a shot, good for you. If not, that's okay. Let's go and implement that now. So we'll go to our asset manager, which is in our resources file here, asset manager, and we'll just go down here to the bottom. We're just going to create another static function here. So static void create Lua asset manager. Okay, and this is going to take a sol state reference, and that's going to be a Lua. And it's going to take in the registry. So Scion, core, ECS, registry, reference, registry. So we're taking in the registry. Okay, create this. And just like every other time, it's pretty straightforward. This doesn't know about those. So let's go back into here. And it looks like I didn't put any of those in. So we're going to need to include the ECS, the registry, and we can also include sol. Okay, so let's go back into here. Cool, now it's happy. So we're just going to want to make a new user type, .new, not mu, new user type, and it's going to be the asset manager. Okay, whoops. All right. And we're just going to call it the asset manager. And here we're going to say sol no constructor. And we're going to want to add a texture. So we go add texture. And this is going to take another lambda function that captures a reference to a const std string reference, and this will say asset name or asset ID. And we need the file path, const std string file path. When we're loading textures, we want to check to see if it's pixel art, so it's going to take in a bool value, bool pixel art. Okay, and we're going to want to return asset. Well, we need to get the asset manager. Silly me. So the first thing I'm going to want to do actually up here is to grab the asset manager from the registry. So we want to go auto reference asset manager is equal to registry.getContext of the std shared pointer of the asset manager. Now we should have an asset manager in our registry by now. Before we try to create this, we should still check to see if not asset manager. Let's do an error. Scion error. Failed to bind the asset manager to Lua. Does not exist in the registry. Awesome. And we'll just return from there. And if it does exist, it will come into here. All right, and we'll go asset manager, add texture, asset name, and then it needs the path, so it'll be file path. Then it will be, is it pixel art or not, so we just send in the pixel art. Awesome, that should be good. That's all we need for now, because we just want to be able to load these textures for us. Okay. All right, so now we need to put this into our script system so it knows. And we can just put that up here in our register Lua bindings, but we need to add in our asset manager if we have not. So let's include resources asset manager. Cool. And then down here, we can just go Scion core Scion resources. What did we call it? Do you guys remember? Scion resources asset manager. Create Lua asset manager, Lua. Cool. So now we should actually have our asset manager loading in. Oh yeah, sorry, this one also needs the registry. I apologize. Cool. Now we should actually have our asset manager, and we should be able to load in our assets from Lua rather than actually doing it from the inside of the engine code, hard coded. Same with your entity defs. You don't want to have to keep adding in constant definitions everywhere. So the best thing to do is to create a new file for our asset definitions. So let's go into our editor or Asteroids here and add a new file, new item. And we'll just call this another Lua file, and it'll be asset defs.assetdefs.lua. Okay. And then this one will just be the same. We're going to have a asset defs. You could probably make this like that. And we're going to have our textures. There will be different assets that we're going to have to add, but we'll start with the textures. And what's the texture going to have? It's going to have a name, and it's going to be ship for the beginning. This is going to be a string. And its path. Asset. And we need to put these into our .png. And pixel art is equal to true. Cool. So we're going to have our ship. We're going to have as1, as2. Or whatever you named it. We'll as1. Let's go back to our defs real quick and see what I call these asteroids. Yeah, so there's an underscore. As1, as2. Awesome. Let's make sure that we put these into that file path. So here, so assets and textures, all we have are these two here. Well, that's all I have for now. So I need to add those in. So I'll add those in right now. All right, so I just added those into my folder there. I already had these set up, so take some time, get your assets set up the way you want them. Okay, so if I just do this, cool, our stuff's in there now. We have it at the right path, good. Okay, so that should be able to load. So now we have our asset defs. That's all we're gonna do in this file. We'll add in more definitions as we need them. And over here in our helper functions, we're gonna need to actually create a new helper function. And this one's gonna be load assets. So it'll be function load assets. So what this is going to do, this is actually, because we're going to be loading all assets at once, we'll put this directly in the asset defs folder or file. So we'll just say function load assets. Now if you want to do it, you can actually just call the asset manager and load any one you want, but what I want to do is loop through all of the entries in this particular table. So what we're going to do here, and we're going to load all the textures here. So what we're going to do is go into our assets defs table, find the textures table, and load in all the textures. Okay, and we're just going to say for kv, so key value pair in pairs, and it's asset defs dot textures do, and we'll put an end here. So now that we're in our, what we're doing is we're going into the table, going into the textures table, and then looping through all the entries inside of that table. So we're going to go if not, I believe that we set adding texture as a bool because we're returning it, add texture bool, good. So let's go back into our asset defs. So if not, asset manager dot add texture, and it's v dot name, v dot path, and then v dot pixel art. Then we want to say print failed to load texture, and that'll be v.name. At path v.path. Cool. Else, we'll just print something. You don't have to print this. We'll just say what we will. Loaded texture v.name. Cool. Now we have to put an end there. Awesome. And then once you've done this, we can just put a to do, because we're going to have different types of assets. So load other asset types. But we can't do that right now. We don't need to worry about that right now. We only care about textures at the moment. Okay. So now that we're able to, we have these little helper functions and we have our asset defs. Let's try to give that a go and see if it'll work. Remember, we can't see this. We can't see the asset defs or the utilities yet. So we need to go run a script on those. So let's go back here. We can put these in the if statement. We know if it works or not. Well, we're just going to take this out for now and just run them. And the next one is asset defs. And then utilities. Utilities. Cool. All right. And if we can do that, we can just say load assets, and it should load the assets for us. So let's just run this and see what happens. It fixed up any errors that we have. Okay, so we're able to load the assets, but we do have an error here. And what does that say? Utilities 45 expected a. We need to go back and fix that. So utilities at 45 here. This comma. That should be it. Let's run this. Awesome. loaded our textures, everything successfully. We should be able to access these now. All I want to do right now is just get the ship to the screen, and that should be enough for this video. So let's do that now. Let's go back into our entity defs, and we're going to want to get the ship into the screen. All we did was copy these, so let's actually put it in the somewhat in the center. So our window is 640 by 480, so let's just put it at 320 at 240. Cool. And we need to actually load it now, so we'll just go back into main.lua, and we'll just say local entity is equal to load entity. And remember, that takes in a definition, so it will be ship defs at blue ship. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to go into our load entity function, but first it's going to go to our ship defs. It's going to find our ship defs, which is here, and it's going to load in our blue ship, or it's going to look for the blue ship and give us all of those. So let's try that out now. Blue ship, is it spelled the same? Yes, it is. Okay, and run. We should get our ship to the screen, and it failed. Perfect. So an error has been passed to the handler. Utilities 28 index a nil value field scale. Good. So let's go check that out. So utilities, it's looking for, didn't find transform.scale. So did we spell it wrong? Let's take a look. Entity defs. Oh, position. You guys probably already caught that. And it's probably the same for the other ones. Yeah, this needs to be scale. Sorry, guys. Put that to scale. Run. It's still upset, and that's okay. Utilities 47. Index local sprite. So utilities 47. So it's saying this needs an equal sign. And run. Awesome, we got our ship to the screen. Great, so that's it for this episode. In the next video, we're going to put the backgrounds and create a ship class in Lua. And we'll go over a small crash course of what a class is in Lua. Lua doesn't necessarily have classes per se, but you can emulate class functionality in object-oriented programming. Okay, so that's enough for this. We got our ship to the screen. We're loading our textures and everything from Lua. We've taken out the hard-coded textures that we did before. Those are gone, so we can all load those things now. And we can run external scripts that are not our main script into our Lua state. All right, take it easy.